Hello, we're starting something new today. This is going to be part one of this series. And, excuse me, what I'm going to be working on today is a Farmhouse Christmas insert for my interchangeable bench. So we'll go ahead and start with this element, the barn. My go-to red color is Country Red. I use all Deco Art paints. And let's get this painted. I like to use a sponge for painting. Sometimes a brush to, for real intricate areas. What you choose to use to paint your project has to be a personal preference. I've seen different styles of painting, and there's no right or wrong. It's just whatever you choose. Now I'm covering up all these score lines, and the reason being is there'll be something that glues over top of that. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. But I definitely want this painted red because that's going to show through on once you glue the door on there. And because this is kind of being kind of old and rustic, I may do that antiquing technique on here. I don't know yet. I don't know if I'll do it on just a few pieces, the entire project. I haven't decided yet. Now there are a lot of pieces for this particular design. But if you're into, rustic and farmhouse style, looking for an interchangeable for your bench for Christmas, I think this is a design you'll like. I watched someone the other day. I'm just going to try it for giggles. I usually use a wet wipe to get like a stain. But this person actually used a wet wipe to apply the paint. And it definitely goes on quicker. And as you can see, it helps eliminate the sponge marks. I mean, I can still see them in there because I think if I'd have done this technique first, you wouldn't have seen them. But what I can tell you that you need to be careful with if you're going to do use a wet wipe to apply paint, you have to be careful because it will remove the paint. And I'm going to go back over this with the sponge once it dries. But that might be something I maybe start doing on certain colors. I watch a lot of different designers paint. I've been painting for a long time. I actually took a break for a while and had to basically relearn everything. But there's just so many different ways to do things. There's no right or wrong. You just have to figure out what works best for you. And I have learned different techniques and styles just by watching other people. There's a lot of great painters out there, a lot. And I'm just going to go back over this with my sponge and hope I get a really solid coat. Also, too, you know, by applying it with a wet wipe, I think you would have to allow your surface to dry a little bit longer than normal because you're adding liquid onto your wood besides, you know, just the paint. I don't know. So that's something I'm going to really, maybe on the next element, I'll start fresh with that. I don't know. We'll see. And see how that really works. I have some bows. I'll just go ahead and paint. Now I did list my witch fence peeker, and she is absolutely adorable. I absolutely love her. I don't care if I get down here in this little slot. And I'm currently working on a Christmas fence speaker. I have a couple I'm gonna do. I wanted to try and get some ornaments done, but there's just not enough hours in the day. And I'm probably going to sand that barn just a titch. Now I want to do some shading underneath this roof line. I kind of didn't get my mark right there very good, but it'll end up being okay. So the color I'm going to use is Black Plum. And I like to use an angle brush, and when I'm using the Black Plum, I use it very sparingly because and I blend my paint very, very well. It's a extremely dark color that if you get too much, if you don't blend it good enough and you put it on heavy, from the beginning, it's kind of tough to get rid of it. So I like to do it very sparingly and then go back and go over it again. Because my philosophy is, and it doesn't matter whether you're shading or highlighting, you can always add more, but you can't take away. I mean, you can correct it. It just requires more work. And I'm going to do a little bit of shading in there as well. It just requires more work. See how dark that can be, and I'm hoping that line's going to be covered up once I put the roof on. Another thing, when you're using an angle brush, it's kind of almost natural to kind of want to put more pressure when you're applying your float to this point, and that's, you know, where all the paint is. And what that helps do is when you do that, it creates a more solid line because you're putting all the pressure on your brush, and that's where the paint is. It's just a natural instinct to do that. So it just takes practice. Everything takes practice, you know, of trying to keep even pressure on your brush. I'm just doing this to create a little bit of a shadow. Where this door is going to glue on. I like to do a lot of detailed work on anything that I do. It's not something you have to do. I just feel that it just elevates the end result. And I think no matter what you do, any type of craft you do, the more time you take in detailed work you do, I think you end up with an elevated finished product. See, and I'm getting some of this way darker than what I wanted. But I'm gonna just try and even it up. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna try a different brush. just want that shadow a little bit wider. And I think this is going to have to be good enough. Okay. And while I have this black plum out, I'm going to take a liner brush, because this is so tiny, and I'm gonna just paint the inside part of this bow. And all this is doing, in a sense, is, I mean, it's kind of emphasizing where I did the score lines, you know, for the loops. It's just kind of, in a sense, creating a shadow. It's not something you have to do. The piece is pretty tiny. On bigger bows, I actually do shading and highlighting. Okay. I think the color I'm going to use is warm white. And I'm not going to really worry about great coverage on these. I want a decent amount of coverage, but it doesn't need to be solid. Because these are wooden doors, and in time they become weathered. And I'm just kind of sliding my sponge across, going with the grain of the wood. But also too, by sliding my sponge, you gotta remember I'm using wood. I do sand my pieces, but sometimes, you know, there's a piece that sticks up. It will catch your sponge and start tearing it. So you want to be careful because it'll leave sponge debris on, you know, the piece that you're working on. I just kind of want to see. Yeah, that's more than bright enough. And I'm going to use neutral gray and just lightly go over, I don't know what you would call those pieces. That's what holds the barn door on and slides over that little bar, but I don't know what the technical name of it is. I know that's what they have out here where I live. I'm just trying to limit how much I'm putting on. So I just want it to look pretty weathered. And then there's going to be a sign that you can put on. It'll come with the DIY kit if you were to choose this. You don't have to put it on. That's why I didn't put any score lines on the barn. But if you wanted to add this, you could. I think what I'll do is I'll paint this antique white. And I'm going to try and put it on as lightly as I can. I'm gonna give you something. baby wipe and just a little bit of paint. Because I wanted a different color from the doors and the window, but I don't want it too standoffish. So I'm using this baby wipe and I'm barely putting any paint on. And I'm trying to avoid the lettering, but sometimes it happens that you get inside the graving. So let's see what we got. Let's see if that's, yeah, that ain't too bad. And I may do some antiquing. This, might be a little bit too bright for me. Especially that white. That just might be too much. So, all right. At least do it on the white part of this stuff just to calm it down so it's just not so bright. So what I like to use is something called Kiehl's Sealing Dark Wax. I like to apply it with a sponge. And I haven't used this in a long time. What I do is I just lightly tap the edge, and there's a bunch on there, so I'll come to my napkin and wipe it off, and then I just go to my surface and just lightly apply it. Now, this I didn't sand my edges or anything like that. I might go back and do that. But see how that just kind of dulls it? And I think that's what I'm going to do before I... This is such a small piece that it might be hard to see the sanding on it. And I just go real lightly and real fast. Over it, just to discolor it. Then if I feel that I've gotten too much, what you want to do is get your wet wipe and then just go back over it, lightly rubbing it off. And because I use wood, it will get into the grain of the wood. I don't know how this technique works on MDF, so I don't know how much antiquing you'll get with that, but because you don't have a grain, so you'll just have to try it. But see how that just brings out the grain of the wood? And then it kind of dulls the brightness of the white paint. And I'm just lightly rubbing it on. I think it kind of just has to be a personal preference how aged it looks, what you're after. And I might put it on the barn. I'm gonna wait and see. Oh, I need to do this sign again. I want it a little bit darker, a little bit more weathered. I'm just going for a real rustic feel. So let's see where we're at. See, that just calms it down so much. And it doesn't hit you in the face. And I'm not going to do anything with my barn. I don't think. Let's just do it. I'm going to use a bigger sponge because I want to put on coverage quickly. I'm not going to do any type of sanding. I'm just going to go with the grain. Okay. Now basically what that does is, one, it dulls it down, it dulls that red down. But then also two, this wax gets into the grain of the wood and just makes it darker in there. I am gonna lightly wipe off, just lightly. And like I said, it has to be a personal preference. So I don't know how I feel about the sign. Part of me wants to, I don't know, change it. Maybe to white, but I don't know if it's too late to do that. I'll see. I have wreaths that I'm gonna put on here. These Christmas trees you're gonna glue, you know, to the front. I did not make the file to where, you know, the outline is, because you might not want them. You might just want the barn. But I want some greenery on here, so I chose to put trees on here. And it just has to be a personal preference how much of an overhang you want. But you definitely want the trunks of the trees to line up with the bottom of the barn. And then, you know, these will hang from here as well. So I wanted some greenery. You know, you could just take one and hang it up here to bring the green up. So I'm gonna paint them both and we'll just see. Okay. I have 2 different colors of green, rather 3. I'm gonna paint these trees. I think I want them a little bit darker. So I'm gonna use the avocado. And then probably what I'll do is go around and sand the tips. I'm gonna use some cocoa on the stem, trunk, I mean. And then I'm gonna use a light avocado. And there's really, I mean, there's a slight variance, but not much, to paint the wreaths. Like I said, I'm just kind of going for a rustic look. Then I'm just going to carefully sand some of these edges. And I'm going to go lightly across. I think I want a little bit more coverage on those wreaths. And I have little sanding sticks. These are pretty a rough grade, but I can get on the inside of this and sand just a few of these Now when you use that sealing wax and do like this antiquing technique, distressing, you can call it distressing, this is where it's most time consuming is sanding the pieces. You know, getting that rough edge to where that wax will adhere. You know, how much you take off. And what I like to do is when I sand, I like to go around the outside edges first, trying to get some of that wax on there. Then I just kind of go across my piece and it just kind of rubs it in. It has to be a personal preference, how much you put on. Then I'll take my finger and on such a small piece and kind of rub it in. You can see there's a slight difference in color, not a whole lot. But that's it. I might as well do these as well, because I didn't. So that kind of calms them down. All right. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to put the wreath on the door. I might think it's too much greenery, or I'll put it up on the window just to draw up some green there. Then these are gonna go here. You just glue them on. And then with these wreaths, you can either have the bow up top, you can have it at the bottom. And I think I'm just gonna do one wreath and have it at the bottom. I think that's the best choice. You could take a stylus and you could put some berries on that if you wanted to. I just don't know how I feel about that. But I'm gonna leave it. But that's that. Very rustic, you know, very vintage, very primitive. That's what I was after. And I absolutely love it. So I will get this glued, and then we will move on to the next element. Okay, so this is where we are, all glued. I absolutely love it. It looks exactly how I want it to look, and it's ready to go into the bench. Very farmhouse, very primitive, very vintage, very rustic. So we'll go ahead and work on the banners next. And I'm going to paint these the warm white and do the antiquing on them. So I'm going to use this wet wipe and apply the white. I don't want a real heavy coat on here. Well, that ended up being more than I wanted, but that's okay. And I'm just kind of wiping with the grain of the wood. And if you do apply paint this way, you want to be cautious of starting and stopping points. Making sure they're blended, because you'll see it. Once it dries. I'll have to dig that out. See, I'm just trying to get rid of those edges as quickly as I can, because if I don't, you're gonna see it once the paint dries. And I'm gonna sand these down, so hopefully that will help as well. And I am getting paint on my edges. I'll just have to go back with a clean wet wipe and wipe them off. Now the grit I'm using to sand these pieces is a 600 grit. But on the edges, because I want them a little bit more rough, you just gotta be careful because it will scratch the paint off. It'll scratch your wood rather. Is a 60. So I'm just gonna lightly sand across. Go across the edges. But if I want more wood taken off, I use that 60. And I kind of just use that at the corners. But I try and be careful because it is so rough. If you get paint on the edges, here's a good way to clean it up. Alright. I really don't like sanding over my surface, but this is going to be just like an easy peasy thing, so like I said, I just kind of go around the edges first to get this wax in those areas and to darken it up. And then I just quickly and lightly go over the grain, over the piece with the grain. And put on as much as, you know, this wax that I'm looking for to give me the look that I'm after. And if I feel like I got too much, I just lightly take a wet wipe. And I might go back and sand on this piece because there's some areas that are lighter than what I want. So. And this is more the look that I'm after. This one is just blotchy in areas. And that's when I grabbed the wrong sandpaper and I accidentally scratched, but it is what it is. It just makes it look a little bit more weathered and vintage, and I'm gonna probably go over that whole thing again. It's hard, I feel, to get a consistent coverage color with this when you're doing multiple pieces like this that go together. Just my opinion. Now see, that's pretty close. That first one I'm not happy with, so I'm gonna have to figure that one out. And see, that's actually darker. I mean lighter, rather. I'm just rubbing that pretty hard. And that's gonna have to do. I might go back and rub over these a little bit, but yeah, I hate that I did that, but there's nothing I can do. Now I could do this. See how that scratches the surface? So you got to be careful, like with lower grit sandpaper. So I just did that to kind of even it up on the letter part. Not happy with it, but once you scratch it up like that, it's kind of hard to fix it, to be honest with you. So I probably got my big head in the picture, so I apologize. Okay, I'm going to take the country red. I'm going to paint the letters and the bow with the country red. Okay, I know I'm gonna paint the trees, the avocado. I use the white avocado for the wreath. And I'm not really worrying a whole lot about coverage. I'm just not. So I'm gonna get a sanding stick, I think. And I'm just gonna sand the edges. Around these letters. Just trying to make them look a little vintage. That's what I like about the sanding stick. It can get in little tiny areas easier than trying to use that other piece, that micro sander, I think is what it's called, a micro sander. I think I want just a little bit more white avocado. And I kind of think it helps with little delicate areas like this, the ends of these branches. Okay. Now I am gonna lightly, well, let's say objective, lightly, put this stuff on. So I just dipped it in there once, and sometimes I'll just pounce it. Okay, good enough. I mean, that took no time at all. So how this banner is going to be, there's going to be a Christmas tree on one, blank one. The J. The wreath is going to represent the O. Once again, you can put it wherever you want. I think I might do that again, put it down below so I get a little bit more green showing. But that's where we're at. Very rustic, very primitive. Like I said, you know, the theme of this is Farmhouse Christmas, and that's what I'm after. So I'll get these glued, and all we have left is to do 2 more elements, and this insert is complete. It's done. So that's going to end it for this part. I might be on later. I might go live on Facebook and finish this up. But if not, you'll see the end result here on YouTube. So, thank you and take care.